Hello and welcome to Stage Perspective. My name is Charles Peters, and our guest today is actor and photographer Rich Soublet. Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, Charles. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate
Sure. You have a really interesting journey, and I thought it would be,
it.
well, so far. I mean, it's not like
That
it's
is an
over.
understatement, my friend. Yeah. No,
That's
yeah,
true.
right.
Yeah,
We've come to the end of this trip.
that's
No.
right. And I started, this thing because I started looking at people that I've worked with, and you and I have worked together a couple of times.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. Well, we did two productions with Triad.
Yep.
One was Curse of the Starving Class. I believe you played the sheriff in that, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And the other was
and you had a big fro too, because it was a period piece. So
it was so that was the year that I was in two shows back to back, both of which wanted me to not cut my hair.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, and it was up until that point, I'd never, like, even as big as it is now, I hadn't really had it that big. And both shows says don't cut your hair. And I go, well, okay, that means a year of not cutting my hair. Like, I don't know what it's gonna look like. And it was, Curse was the second show, so it was huge.
Yeah. Well, and Adam was very insistent because he was Adam Parker, the director. He was trying to like kind of do it as a period piece. It was a little set in the period, not too specifically, but yeah. And so I remember I had never seen your hair like that. Usually it's very close and cropped. So
yeah.
And then the other show was Last Days of Judas Iscariot, which was also Triad, but directed by Steve Schmitz.
One of my favorite plays too.
Yeah, both of those shows were at 10th Avenue here in San Diego. Were you in Last Days?
I was not in that show. I was there.
You produced it, and I know you took a lot of photos.
Produced and took photos and sort of the Allen wrench for that show. Whatever else needed to be done, I did.
Oh, that's funny.
As you know, it goes in theater sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yeah, absolutely. I'm grateful for my days, sort of traveling with an act, because it taught me how to be prepared, because when you're on a ship or you're in Singapore or whatever and you're thousands of miles, like there's not an Ace Hardware down the street.
Oh no.
It's like
all the gaff tape you have is the gaff tape that you have.
That's it. back up without packing too much. Very specific packing. So how did you get started? Because you started out as an actor. Really?
I did.
Right?
I started out as an actor, and that started that goes all the way back to high school.
Yeah. And
that was my sophomore year. I saw, my gosh, I'm going to butcher them. No, I remember. It's the Screw Tape Letters, based on the book of the same name by C.S. Lewis. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of my friends were in it, and there were people that were in it that I never would have thought would be someone who would do theater. And up until that point, my experience with theater was, my parents taking me to see the Nutcracker every year. And like the occasional other Christmas play, like maybe we go see some Dickens, we see A Christmas Carol or something like that.
Were they theater goers at all? Did they expose you to any of that? Because let's see, like me growing up, we went to theater a lot. I went and saw musicals and theater and friends and shows and other family members. So
it was rare. It wasn't non-existent, but it was definitely one of those, like, maybe once a year something would come along and go, let's go to the theater. And we'd drive into San Francisco into one of the larger theaters there and go see something. But no, it wasn't. There was a Wiz poster hanging in my room when I was growing up. That's about the closest I got to being like overtly exposed to theater by my parents.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a constant thing for me. I didn't really get into it until high school.
Yeah.
And in high school, I was doing mostly I was doing like prop construction and set construction and like lighting design, like as much as it could be called design at that age. But I learned, sort of what I call the meat and potatoes of theater, which is how to conduct yourself in a close, tight-knit group over a long period of time, which I think is which is not just something valuable to learn for as you do theater or you do shows or productions when you're older, but in life, because whatever you end up doing, you're going to have to work with other people. And I don't think there's a better way to learn how to do that than to do a show.
That's true. And there's a lot of etiquette that you learn as a young person in theater by watching, observing, and being yelled at. So
yes, there was plenty of that.
Yeah.
Our because in a place like in a high school setting, they have a teacher that they sort of throw to the wolves to like be in charge of drama. And we were very fortunate that we had a man. His name was Michael Hook. We called him Mr. Hook because he was a teacher, and he was very. It was a Catholic school, first of all, and he was the exact kind of person you would not picture to be a teacher at a Catholic school. Like very brash and very outspoken, and to the point, and didn't sugarcoat anything.
Yeah.
So when it came to, if you're doing something like stage crew, if you're on stage crew, you only have one thing to do. And we're like, what's that? And he says, don't fuck up. Like, that's all you have to do is not fuck up. And we thought it was, because we're 15. We're like, this is great. Like, this guy's
right.
Awesome. We had t-shirts made that said, don't fuck up on them, but the fuck was spelled wrong. It was great. And that was my introduction into like sort of the world of theater. So I was totally enamored. And
that wasn't here though. That was you said San Francisco. So you lived in did you grow up in Oakland?
I grew up in Oakland, and that high school was in the Alameda. So
okay,
gotcha. It would be San Diego's equivalent to Coronado, if you were trying to make a comparison.
Okay, no, that's good. I'm glad you did that. I have no frame of reference, so
it's literally an island, like farther out into the bay that's connected to Oakland.
Yeah,
it's very much the same sort of dynamic as well.
Mm-hmm.
But so I did shows both on stage and backstage and all around the stage there, sophomore through senior year. And then I came down here to San Diego in the year 2000 thinking I was going to get a degree in aerospace engineering.
Now, why is that? What is that?
Why was that? Why did I come here for that?
Was that? I mean, no. And that makes sense that you'd come here for that because we're very tech heavy here. But I mean,
absolutely.
And scientific discoveries, a lot of them made here in San Diego. But that journey of like, is that what you were sort of interested in? And drama was kind of a hobby in high school?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. At the time, I was very science. I would say I'm science-based. We're all science-based. I was very science-driven and science-forward. That was what I thought I really wanted to do. And what was really great about State is they had these sort of little blocks of classes that you could sign up for that would give you a taste of what you'd be studying further down the road in your actual degree program.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a couple of engineering classes right off the bat in freshman year, which is really cool. And that's where I learned it was not for me. That is where I learned it was, because it was just a lot of, I think the reality of it sort of set in that all of the things that I thought were really cool about it, like you'd have to join the military to do. Like if you wanted to fly planes, if you wanted to really you're not the guy who designs things. Like that's not how engineering works anymore. Everybody works on like one little tiny piece and then you put all the pieces together. It's like everyone playing Legos, but with a lot more money and a lot more on the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very rigid, as you know.
Yeah.
And I realized, thankfully, very early on into it that I'm just not, I didn't feel anyway that I was built for that.
Yeah.
And then I rediscovered theater. Not rediscovered, it's only been a year, but I got back into it again at the end of my freshman year, being a sophomore year, because I took a general level course. Because, as you know, in college, there's that sort of moment of panic if you're going through a major change. It's like, what am I going to do? Because, here I am 500 miles away from home. I'm supposed to, decide how to live my life. And I have, you're 18, 19.
Yep.
It's all this pressure. So I'm sort of like vacillating between do I want to study political science and criminal justice, or do I want to study something else? And I took Theater 100 and I was like, wait a minute, I should study theater. I didn't even realize it was an option. I didn't realize that was something that you could do. And then I changed my major to theater. And then I entered my sophomore year as a theater major. And that was when I really dove in and really that's where I met Adam Parker.
I was going to say, that's where you probably met everybody, right?
Adam, Steve, all those guys, we all met that year because we were all cast in Romeo and Juliet together.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Which
Now
was
remind me, Triad started, and we're going to get to Triad because I want to hear about that. But
yeah,
Triad was Adam and you and Scott
it's
and
Adam, me, Scott, and Ryan Ross.
Ryan Ross.
Yeah.
Not Brendan was not part of the original.
Um,
Was he just kind of was there?
no, he was. Yes, he was.
Okay.
Sorry, Brendan, if you're watching
Yeah.
this.
Didn't want to turn him
in New
into
York. I've
the
also
fifth Beatle, you know. Right.
Brendan moved to New York. He's
Yes.
Ringo now.
He's or not Pete Best.
Exactly.
He's Ringo. Just to clarify.
But yeah, they all lived in a college house together right around that time too.
Yeah.
And I was spending the vast majority of my time there because we were all friends. And that was where Triad was born.
Yeah. How did that start? How did Triad start? Triad, if you don't know, was a production company. You probably did maybe 10, 11, 12 productions in town?
Say 9 or 10.
Okay, 9 or 10.
I'm totally reaching in the darkness.
That's all right. But I kind of remember that number. And the reason that they're important, I mean, it is because there wasn't anything like you in town. Everything was so well established at that point. Everything was sort of, for lack of a better term, I don't want to offend anybody, but kind of cliquey.
Oh, sure.
And exclusive. And here was a group of young guys who put together this group, and they were casting very openly and giving their friends but you know, they were good actors and opportunities to direct and act and so forth, and the productions were really high level. They weren't, you know, community theater or anything. It was very no, it was not at all. They were very professional, and you know, they were very well received. They were very well reviewed. I was very proud to be in both of the ones that I was in.
Awesome.
Yeah,
we felt very fortunate to have you be a part of it as well. First of all, let me say that.
Thank you. Yeah, but anyway, so how did Triad come about? I mean, what was that? Give me a glimpse into that conversation.
It was one of those, you know, afternoons, several beers forward, and we're definitely talking about. And, you know, we didn't articulate it this way at the time because we didn't have the benefit of years or experience or perspective quite yet. We were still all very young, as you know. We're still relatively young. And it was sort of a reflection on the state, not the state of theater in San Diego. Again, we didn't say it like that, but looking around and seeing the sort of shows that were being made, where they were being made, who they're being made by. And it's exactly as you said. It feels very, it's very circular.
Yeah,
you know, you see sort of the same people doing the same shows.
Fred Harlow and I talked about that.
Yeah,
about it being sort of like you know, repertory, where you see the same actors. Now there are some companies that, you know, they have a company and they use their people, but there's really not a repertory company in town. But we tend to see at the same theaters to see the same people all the time, and it's
which, you know, certainly has its strong suits, and there's positives about that, but if you're from sort of the outside looking in, thinking like, well, how do you break into that, or how do we get them to tell different stories, with stories that might have, you know, sort of a different appeal, or not necessarily broad appeal, but that are saying something specific, and it seems like sort of a mountain to climb, and that it was at the time, it's just probably just easier to do your own thing, and so that's what we did. It was hard. You know, working with friends is hard. And I don't believe up till that point that any of us had done that in a professional capacity, having to rely on people that up until then you'd mostly been goofing around with. And here you are trying to rely on people to come through, and you know, there were faults and foibles and things that happened that I'm sure all of us would go back and love to fix. But that's sort of the way that it goes sometimes. And for what it was at the time and the shows that we got to do, I'm absolutely proud of that. It was a wild time in my life for sure. And it is sort of that youthful grit of, I'm just going to throw myself at this and spend my energy till I have none left to make sure that it works, without sort of the benefit of having a more tempered, measured response to, you know, things like failings in fundraising or success in fundraising. Like, why do we have all this money? What do we do now? Marketing, things like maintaining a good atmosphere on set for all the actors, making sure everyone's comfort level is high, things like that you don't necessarily think about when you don't have that experience yet. And you're like, we're just going to go and we're going to do it and it's going to work because we all love theater and, we've chosen good people to work with and everything's just going to be fine. Right. And that's not always the case, unfortunately, but I will stop way short of saying that it paved the way for anybody else. I will not say that because there were definitely other people at the same time who were thinking the same things that we were, who said in their own vacuum that this is something that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And you look at companies like Mololo and Circle Circle Dot Dot, who came and did pretty much the same thing. So we're going to tell the stories that we want to tell, and we're going to cast people we want to cast, and come see it or don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is
what was cool about Triad is that you guys did exactly that. You did shows that people were not really doing. You did, you did edgy off stuff. I mean, no one
else was going to do Lonesome West.
Right. And no one has done Curse of the Starving. Someone did Curse of the Starving Class like years ago, but it hadn't been done in like 10 years. And same with Last Days of Judas Iscariot. And Red Light.
Which is crazy to me.
You're not seeing those done. It's like, these are great plays. Why aren't we seeing? And
absolutely.
If I find a list, I'll put it up. I'll run a list through.
Or I'll find the list. I'll find the list for you. Find the old website, the GeoCities looking website.
Right.
It was the mid 2000s.
Yeah. I like the shot of you guys all around the pool table. That was great. So,
yeah. Oh man.
Cool shot. That really kind of set the vibe of like a sort of outsider, coming in.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know that you paved the way, but it was very interesting that because of what you were doing, that you gained the attention of Ion Theater, which was a very edgy theater, which is born out of now I'm going back to Sledgehammer, which was a very, very edgy theater. They did stuff just shock value. And even that is connected to the old Fritz, which is the Fritz Theater, which they were very, which was run by Dwayne Daniels and Candace and my stepfather-in-law and all that. So, but Dwayne was basically the leading force in that, and he was in Triple Espresso with me too as well. So it's all connected. But that was really a thing that was like a big, big deal in town for a long time. And I always compare Ion to Fritz. That Ion really wanted to be the Fritz Theater.
I remember. I remember the proto version of Ion, because they were trying to get hold of the same space that we were trying to get hold of for Triad. So there was a little bit of headbutting there.
Yeah.
I'm loving and seeing the shows that they were doing at what was formerly called Six at Penn before they took it over. Was
that the space that you're talking about, Six at Penn?
Yeah. Well, no, it was that was the second one. The first one was the space where we did Danny in the Deep Blue Sea, which was like a little warehouse space down in like Mission Gorge.
Right. Yeah,
and they ended up not even staying there and moving to Six at Penn shortly after.
Yeah. Yeah. Now in college, did you just like I'm going back to college.
College.
In college, did you just most people just go crazy. They just do whatever. I'm talking about theater. They just, just any role, whatever, I'll take it just to be on stage, or I'll work on the show or what have you, just anything. Did you do a lot of acting
I didn't do a ton of acting in college. I didn't. Okay. I was very, and I think at the time I didn't have the same sort of confidence that I have now, whereas now if I see a role that I think I could be good in, I'll just go after it. I'll just go and I'll go after it. And I haven't done that in a long time either, because photography rules my life now. Mm-hmm. But in college, I was very hesitant and very, very gun shy about going after stuff. But when I did see something that I thought was interesting, I would approach it. But that didn't happen very often. Yeah. That's what I say. I didn't see, there weren't a lot of things being done on campus that I thought, I'll be good in that, or I want to do that, or I want to be a part of that, at least as far as being on stage goes. And I got really into doing sound design, and that's what I did a lot of in college. I did I did that for a number of shows. I want to say to do 4 shows. throughout the years that I was there. And that's sound design is one of those, is sort of the blind child. If it works the way it's supposed to, like it doesn't stand out, it just works.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about a great soundscape and how it can add to or detract from what is happening on stage.
Yeah.
A lot of fun, and I have a deep love and appreciation for the work that sound designers do, because I was very, very into that at the time.
Yeah, I've actually done it a number of times, and I often end up providing for the sound designer because they'll not quite be capturing the. Usually it's music. It's not usually sounds, although I've done that. But like, no, not that. No, it's got to be this kind of music or this.
Right.
So, yeah. It's just like, so I have like a ridiculous collection of just, avant-garde things, just all over the map. So just different things. Anyway, so when you guys started Triad, did you have it divided up, or you guys just all kind of like the producers, the company members, or whatever? Did you have an actual title, like something that was relegated to you?
We did, and I couldn't tell you what it was. we were, because like I said, we were flying by the seat of our pants, right? We knew that we needed an artistic director, and we needed a managing director, and like an executive director.
Yeah. Right.
And much like I was on every show, I was like, I'll do whatever's needed to be done, because I had a lot of hands-on experience and zero administrative experience.
Sure.
Which was the case for a lot of us, but Adam certainly had much more experience directing than anybody else, so it was sort of a given that he would fill that role, being technical director. So it was very obvious that he would fill that role, and Ryan was already working in marketing at Carl Strauss at the time, so it was very obvious that he would fill that role. I was just sort of doing my thing, and that was right around the time where I really, not really hit the ground running with photography, where I really found that was something that I was gonna focus on. It's a little on the nose, but
photography, focusing on photography. When did you start in photography? I mean, where did that interest begin? Can you trace that back?
Sure. I was 8.
You were 8?
I was in my parents' pantry, and I found my dad's old Canon AE1 from like 1978 or something. And I was playing with it like it was a toy. And I asked my mom what it was. She said, "It's a camera." And I'm like, this is a camera? You can never seen before, because by then you had those, like, the plastic 80s style, like,
right,
or the disposables and stuff like that. And she goes, and she showed me how to use it. She said, "You want some film?" And they went and got me film, and I discovered my dad's old slides. He was really into drag racing. Him and his brother would go and take photos of drag races to go and try and catch the cars on camera.
Yeah.
And my mom kind of fostered that by getting film and letting me play with her camera and getting disposables and getting stuff developed. Back in my day, when you had to wait 4 weeks or however how long to see what you got. Oh my God. I can't.
Did you learn all the stuff? Did you learn all the, like to do the trays and be able to put
I learned all that in high school. Yeah. Because I joined yearbook when I was in high school, and one of the guys to a darkroom, and we didn't do a lot of our own developing for yearbook, but the guy who had access would let us go in there and showed me how to do all that.
Yeah.
And you'd sit there in the little room with your red light on with all the chemicals. Right. I much prefer sort of the digital workflow where I can go and do it anywhere.
Well, it's so instantaneous, because you've got, it's like you can see. I mean, now you can see, and even just the advance of in-camera viewing.
Oh yeah,
was huge, because then you can check and go, oh, that's totally not what I want. So
it blows me away. So I did it for yearbook school, and I kind of lost it because at the tail end of high school and that little sort of gap year, we'll say, before I got back into theater was absolutely my number one focus in life, and it was a total driving force. And then I rediscovered, as a lot of people like to call it, for photography on a trip to Italy in 2003. And the girl, she had a really nice Nikon 35 millimeter, and that she didn't really know how to use. And I said, well, I can show you how to use that. So I was like playing with the camera and remembering all the things that I used to do. And that was film too. That was also, so we bought a bunch of film, and we traveled around Italy and took pictures, and it was great. And I got back and I was like, I need a camera of my own. Like, because I had, like a little point and shoot, I think, but not a real camera. So I got myself a real camera, and I started taking it to gatherings and parties. So there are many, many photos of my friends at the tail end of college that have ruined political careers because,
Yeah.
or any aspirations towards having political careers, because I was everywhere and I was taking pictures of everything, and it totally snowballed into I don't know if you remember or ever had the chance to work with or meet Matthew Chapman.
I don't think so.
Large dude, big dude.
Maybe.
And
Yeah.
he asked me, this was in 2006, where he asked me if I would do headshots for him, because he was going to URDA's and he was auditioning for grad school.
Yeah.
And he needed a headshot. And I said, well, that's just a picture of your face. How hard could it be? Right? Not knowing. But,
right.
We went and we did it, and they turned out pretty good. And I was like, maybe I have something here. And it kind of just snowballed from there. Other people asked me to do other stuff. And I started doing production photography for student shows on campus, and ballooned into the thing that it is now.
And now, I mean, you don't do a lot of that, but I know that you do get called in to take photos for like productions and stuff. We have I know there's two major guys that do that, Darren Scott.
Yep.
And
I've run it whenever Darren can't do it, I do it.
Yeah. and Ken Jacques,
yes.
And he's great, and he goes everywhere, and they both are great, and they both have their own eye. And I mean, Darren is really good at capturing action to me, and really, I mean, he took some photos one time of it, and I was just like, these are just like some of the most incredible theater photos I've ever seen. He'll get
right in there too. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was gonna say. He gets right in there. Yeah. So and
Ken's strength is a little bit more at the setup. Like he can really meticulously set up a shot and make it look great, and not to make it not feel set up is the other thing.
Right. Yeah. So they're both very strong, and but your thing that you're doing now, you do a lot of headshot work. I know.
I do a lot of headshots and portraits.
Yeah, and your headshots are amazing. I mean, the headshot.
Well, thank you.
Of me is wonderful. I get comments on it all the time, and you've also joined a group, like a photographer's sort of networking group, and that's been amazing, because they've elevated you to like a whole nother level that you probably, I mean, I'm just reading between the lines, but like you probably were not aware of. Like, I didn't know I could go here, and now you're there. So tell me about that.
Changed. It's called the Headshot Crew, and it was started it's founded by a New York headshot photographer named Peter Hurley, who's a whole other kind of enigmatic and like interesting, awesome, cool character to be around.
Yeah.
But the idea was, like, he'd found a formula that worked for doing headshots, and it's the lighting, and it's the interaction, and it's the direction, and it's all that stuff. And it was like, why not share this? Like, why not get this into the hands of photographers all around the country, so that we can sort of elevate the craft? And I found that in 2017. And like with everything new, like I was a little hesitant. I'm like, I don't know about this. Like, this guy's coming in here with this New York attitude, talking about he knows everything. And, so I sort of watched for a little while from behind the scenes, and I thought, there's something to this. There really is. So then I sort of dove into it a little bit harder towards the tail end of 2018, completely changed the way that I shot, started doing only in studio stuff.
Yeah.
And it has, it's changed my business model. Like, I completely overhauled everything. And now it's, now I have a studio space, and it's been this insane ride. Like, it's a crazy ride.
Well, I mean, you also worked with you've worked with companies, and it's in the last 5-6 years, it's just like taken over your life, really. I mean, photography. I mean, but in a good way. I mean, it's been
absolutely.
It's like, that's how you make your living. I know that, but it's also, it's very much a passion. So
and I get my theater fix by working with the Globe. Like, I do a lot I don't, not right now, obviously, because we're in a pandemic and live theater isn't happening. But all their arts engagement productions, I shoot all of those, and I shoot all the events for them for that too.
Fantastic.
They've become a large, year-to-year client, which I'm always thankful for. Repeat clients are great.
Yes, absolutely. And are there other theaters in town besides the Globe that you work with?
I've done some work for Signet. That's a little bit more sporadic, because I know they tend to lean on Darren a little bit more.
Sure.
And I've done some, whenever Darren can't do it for New Village Arts, I get called up to go up there and do it for them too.
Yeah.
Usually that's when he's in the show. This is when I'll go up there and do it for them. So I've done a couple of shows for them as well.
Do you When's the last time you acted? When's the last time you were on stage?
Man,
Am I hope I'm not touching a nerve either.
no, not at all. Not at all. It was that year. It was the year of the double show. It was the show after
Oh, okay.
hers.
Yeah.
It was the circle
Yeah.
about that show was
Right.
I was gonna say Thor Ragnarok, but it was just called Ragnarok.
Right.
And since then, it's not that I haven't had the itch, it's that I haven't seen anything, much like I said, about how I felt in high school and even in college.
Sure.
I haven't seen anything that I really wanted to go after
Yeah.
and really wanted to be a part of.
Yeah. And I would imagine it's hard because you're so busy with
absolutely
photography. So
it's impossible to have a rehearsal schedule and photograph events at the same time.
You would just have to stop for a while.
I'd have to stop doing one or the other.
Yeah. What is your favorite kind of shoots? I know that you've done weddings. I know you do theater. I know you do headshots, and you do probably you have your own passion projects where you just go out with somebody and shoot, or you just shoot on your own. What's your favorite kind of shoot?
Oh man.
Or can you say that? Can you actually
No,
say that?
I can nail it down. It would have to be, there's sort of a blended style and thing that I do now where it's not quite headshot and not like a strict setup portrait either. And I've geared that towards doing a very specific project. I'm doing a project that I started in March, end of February, beginning of March. There's a sort of a breaking bread or a meeting of not all, but all of us were there. A lot of the Black artists in San Diego got together for this meeting that was facilitated by the Globe. And that was sort of mid-February. Mm-hmm. And I'd already been thinking about trying to do like a specific project geared towards Black History Month because it was in the middle of Black History Month.
Yeah.
And I was really unsure about what I wanted to do or what I wanted to say, or because I didn't want to just rehash something that had already been done. And I wanted to bring something new to the table. Yeah. And I wasn't quite sure what that was yet. I'm sitting in this room full of these other, amazing Black artists, young and old, people who are, in the MFA program at USD, and people who have been established here in the community doing theater for a long time, everything in between. Just all these varied experiences and stories, just full of nuance. And I thought there's a lot of value in that. And we're going around the room and they ask us this question, and I forget what it was word for word, but the gist of it was, what would you want to tell people about, Black people in general, like something that they might not know? And for me, it was that we're not all the same. Like we don't all, and it was right. I remember this very specifically because it was the week after, I don't know if it was Biden or if it was somebody else who was on the news or on the radio or somewhere talking about getting the Black vote. just seeing it as, and how that's always been sort of it's always kind of stuck in my craw. Yeah. That it's viewed as, and I understand demographics. I know that things work this way, and I get that, but sort of being lumped into just this box of here's how this group of people think and feel, and here's what they do, and here's what they do with their time, and here's this media they consume and all this stuff, never really sat right with me. And so being there in the room and having that in my mind, I thought, what if I started this portrait project where I just asked people to tell me their stories and tell me what their specific experience has been living as a Black person here in America. Not necessarily today, but as you know, now it's become an even much, much more of a hot button issue, much more at the front of everybody's minds.
Yeah.
And just sort of a very organic, like, interview, much like we're doing right now. And I'll let them, say their piece, and then I'll stand them up in front of the camera and I'll say, we're going to take 10 shots. And I just want you to show me how you're feeling. And I'll relate back to specific things that they said during the interview to evoke a certain emotion, and I'll snap away on that. And I've done that with 6 people so far. I had to stop, obviously, because there was a while where we couldn't do indoor photography during when everything was like more tightly locked down. But I started back up again last week, and I'm looking to keep it going. I want to get to at least, I'm very ambitious about this. I want to get to 100 people. And the original goal was to do that by the end of 2020. I don't think that'll happen now, but
you could make it, but it'd be a lot of work.
It would be a lot of work.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I've personally have pulled in a lot of value for myself from this, just sitting with people and talking with people and learning about, what they come from, what life is like for them. Right. And taking a minute to see things from their perspective. And that's sort of That and, lighting are where I marry theater and photography,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you can't be an actor without empathy.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can be a great photographer without empathy either. So I bring the two of them together using my experience in theater to, get it out of people, for lack of a better way of saying it.
I think that's why your photography has that feel to it, and is because of you, is because it is a two-way street. There is a relationship there, especially in a headshot session. But even when you're just shooting something, there's something in it. There's something going on in the photo. So and it's funny.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, that's funny that you said that like people are different, that we're all different. It's just like, that seems like such a simple concept, but it's
right.
Like, yes, I was laughing at you saying that. I'm like, that's, but it's very true. You're right, because that is demographics and so forth, and it's just it's people's perspectives. So but your photography is. Do you have some favorite? I'm sure you have like favorite headshots that you like. Do you have favorite other shots, like from theater or from landscapes? And
I do. I've got 3. I would dismantle all this and show you, but I don't want to shake the vibe of what we got going here. I've got 3 landscapes up on our wall. From trips that I've taken with my wife Lindsay. One's from Zion National Park, one's from Bryce Canyon National Park, and one's from Glacier National Park. And those are 3 of my favorite shots I've ever taken ever.
Yeah.
And I always say this. I need to print more stuff, because there's something about, digital is nice, and having the nice clear 4K screens is amazing and everything, but there's nothing like holding a photo print in your hand. Like, it's just, it's still not this. It's not the same. It's just,
it's not. And I mean, it's funny. I see those guys. I know you're busy, but I mean, I see those guys that go down and take photographs of, OB or the waves and stuff. And then I see them set up at a street festival, and I'm like, man, that looks great. But,
you put your hands on it, you're like, no, it looks
totally
so good
something that you could do. If you ever get stuck, that's a moneymaker for you.
Yeah, that's another. I did that briefly, very briefly, in 2010. 2010, I was doing that. I was going to street fairs, and I was doing that whole thing. Sure. It's tough.
Yeah,
it is tough. And I wasn't as good. I wasn't as good back then as I am now. Like, if I did it now, I'd probably have a much better time. Mm-hmm. But it's really tough for sure.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said about, and that was my moment of zen for a long time. Was I would I'd just grab the backpack and the tripod, and I'd go down to like La Jolla Cove, or not the Cove, but Hospitals Break, which is a little bit south of that.
Yeah.
And just photograph breaking waves and do stuff like that.
It's gorgeous.
But now it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Now I love sitting down with people. Like, if there's a person that I can talk to. Like, I took a portrait a couple weeks ago of this woman. You may or may not know her name's Alice Smith Cooper. And she's a actress / storyteller. She's been here in San Diego for a very long time too. And it's just such a smack you in the face portrait. And I want to print it. And would it be weird if I printed this portrait of this person and just put it on the wall in my house? Like, maybe not. Maybe in the studio. I'll hang it in the studio.
It's funny. So if someone was, what would you say to someone getting started in the business, whether they're an actor or, I love that you segued into another passion. I have a lot of different passions. Acting is a main thrust for me, but I have a lot of passions. And I probably always will continue to be some kind of a performer, being on stage in some capacity.
We need you up there.
So, it's delightful to me because of you bring so much to that. So I wanted to ask you, what would you tell, somebody who's thinking about, especially someone who's maybe, challenged by their upbringing, or even their color, or their, circumstances, or their financial, give some words of wisdom to a young artist starting out.
Sure. Because this is not the first time I've been asked this, especially recently.
I didn't think so.
Yeah. And it's it can be hard to walk into a space where you feel like you don't see a reflection of yourself. It can be tough.
Yeah.
And to someone who's trying to do that, who's trying to break into the space, for lack of a better word, I say you belong where you want to be. And if you can walk into a room honest, earnest, open, conduct yourself with empathy and truth, that you can do anything anywhere. That's what I would
very
say.
Good. That's good. That's good. Yep. And I have two last questions for you.
Absolutely. Fire away.
One is, what's your best acting story? Like your bet, like, this is it, man. This is like, I am it. I am a god.
Oh man.
I have a few of those. I mean, you even took like a photograph of one of my very, I don't want to say favorite moments, but a very great moment on stage, and that was in Curse of the Starving Class.
Oh yeah.
And it ended up making it in the paper, the eagle shot.
Yes, I love that shot. I still have that. I still have all those.
Yeah.
All those things.
So I mean, that's just something like that. Do you have one of those? Do you have an acting moment?
I do, and this is from college, and I was in. It wasn't even a staged, like it wasn't even an actual play. It wasn't even an actual production. It was just a directing scene that I did for a friend. Sure. And it was from Raisin in the Sun, and I was doing Walter Lee. Right. And I remember the scene. It's the scene where he takes over and where he sort of like loses it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I just jumped up on the table and I like really dove into it. And I remember like I had my hands up like this, and I just finished like the last part of the monologue, and I had like everything was in my face. And I looked around the room and I could see people's face, and they're like, and I just remember like being able to be that affecting to a group of people, to a room full of people, there's a reason people fall in love with acting, and there's a reason people I get addicted to it, I would say, is because there are few feelings in the world that are quite like that, and it's extraordinary. Yeah, and I'll never forget that moment either. Like it's burned in there.
Yeah. It's very powerful. I mean, it's very powerful. I talked with Jill. She was talking about the end of, Anne Frank, and how the audience was just like dead silent, like not just like quiet, but like nobody made a sound for like minutes. Yeah. After the production, they just sat there. And she said that was like, I love. It was just like, we didn't know what to do. So it was a very powerful moment. Yeah,
we did it.
You just didn't know how to react to it. So it's such a powerful production.
I love that.
And then photography. I have to ask you, do you have a favorite moment that of photography? That's a kind of a different animal, but it's got to be the same.
It's a big question. There's a lot, because there's a million more of those moments. If I had to choose, it would be being good enough to be flown out of the country to do it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was flown to England a few years back to do a wedding.
Oh, wow.
And in my mind, I'm like, there are photographers in England.
I know there are.
I'm fairly certain they have this technology there. And to be good enough to be the person like, no, we want you to do it. That was
wow. Yeah.
That's any time anybody books me for something, because I know that there are a lot of options out there. Yeah. I feel a little bit of a twinge of that. Like I'm truly grateful anytime anybody wants to step in the front of the camera and pay me to do it. Yeah. But for that, like to get to that level was really something else. It sticks with you,
Yeah. That's amazing. I don't think I knew that. I don't think I knew that that happening. When did that happen? Was that happen in the last couple of years?
That was in 2014. So it was a little.
Oh, okay. So it was a while ago. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, well, very, very wonderful. It was a real pleasure to talk with you. So
always great talking with you, Charles.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been Rich Soublet. We're going to throw a bunch of links down in the description of where you can see more of Rich's photography. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to be notified and see more videos, we have more coming up. Hit that subscribe button and you'll be notified. So once again, this has been Rich Soublet, with Stage Perspective. My name has been Charles Peters, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Charles.